The alarm did not ring like a warning. It screamed. Red light washed across the glass walls of Whitmore Financial Systems, while executives froze in place, phones halfway to their ears, eyes locked on screens they no longer controlled. Somewhere above the trading floor, a woman in a white designer suit shouted for answers no one had. And in the security room below the lobby, a black night guard in a faded navy uniform set down his paper cup of coffee, looked once at the live network map, and said quietly, "They're already inside." 3 hours earlier, that same man had been invisible. Caleb Brooks arrived at 6:42 p.m. with his son beside him and a backpack over one shoulder. The summer sky over downtown Atlanta still held a little gold, but the tower had already shifted into evening mode. Fewer voices, polished floors, elevators humming like they had somewhere important to be. Noah walked close to his father, one hand wrapped around the strap of his backpack, the other holding a small red toy car with a chipped spoiler and the word "Rocket" written across the hood in black marker. "You sure I can stay in the security room?" Noah asked. Caleb glanced down. "As long as homework gets done." Noah made a face. That face won't solve long division. It might scare it. Caleb's mouth almost smiled. Almost. He tapped his badge against the reader, waited for the soft click, and held the side door open. The security office sat behind the main lobby, tucked away where visitors would never notice it. 4 desks, 12 monitors, a microwave that buzzed too loud, a coffee machine old enough to vote. Caleb liked it fine. It was quiet after 7. Quiet meant Noah could read. Quiet meant bills could be sorted between patrols. Quiet meant nobody asked questions about the life Caleb had left behind. He hung his jacket on the chair and checked the monitors one by one. Garage entrance clear. Loading dock clear. North stairwell clear. Server floor hallway clear. His eyes lingered there half a second longer. A maintenance contractor passed the camera outside the server floor, pushing a cart with a loose wheel. Caleb watched the man swipe in. The badge worked. The door opened. Nothing unusual. Still, Caleb wrote the time down on a yellow legal pad. 6:51 p.m. Noah climbed into the spare chair and placed Rocket carefully beside his math worksheet. "Rocket says he doesn't believe in fractions," Noah said. "Rocket can walk home." Noah pulled the worksheet closer. At 7:08, Helena Whitmore entered the lobby. The building changed around her. People straightened. Conversations thinned. The receptionist sat taller. Helena moved through the revolving doors without slowing, her heels striking the marble in clean, expensive clicks. She was 42, sharp-faced, immaculate, the newly appointed CEO of Whitmore Financial Systems, and the kind of woman whose name made people check their posture before she entered a room. Behind her came 2 senior vice presidents, an assistant with a tablet, and a consultant Caleb had seen twice that week, but never after office hours. Helena's eyes passed over the lobby and landed on Caleb for less than a second. Not on his face, on the uniform. Then she looked away. Caleb stood beside the security desk, with his hands folded in front of him. "Good evening, ma'am." She did not answer. One of the vice presidents gave him the quick nod people gave to elevator doors when they opened on time. Noah looked up from his worksheet. His eyes followed Helena across the lobby, then returned to his father. "She didn't hear you," he whispered. Caleb adjusted the monitor angle. She heard. Noah's pencil stopped moving. Caleb did not look at him when he spoke again. "Finish number 6. The boy looked down, but his fingers tightened around Rocket for a moment before he let go. By 8:15, most of the building had emptied. Floors 20 through 30 still glowed with late meetings. Tomorrow morning, Whitmore Financial was scheduled to announce a merger with a European payment processor, the kind of deal that turned executives into magazine covers and employees into bullet points on a restructuring plan. Caleb knew only what people said around him when they forgot he was there. That happened often. At 8:32, he began his first patrol. He moved through the lobby, then the east corridor, then the service hallway, behind the conference center. He checked locks with 2 fingers, noted a burned-out ceiling panel near the freight elevator, and paused when he reached the restricted access door to the server floor. The reader blinked green. The door was closed. Caleb crouched and looked at the bottom hinge. A thin gray thread of packing fiber clung to the metal. Fresh. He did not touch it. He only looked. Then he stood, turned his head slightly toward the camera dome above him, and continued walking as if nothing had changed. Back in the security room, Noah had finished 1 column of math and fallen asleep with his cheek on his forearm. Rocket sat beside his hand like a tiny guard dog. Caleb lowered the office light. The first alert came at 9:17. Not the big alarm, not yet. Just a small flicker on the building operations panel, a failed login from a maintenance terminal on floor 27. Then another, then nothing. Caleb leaned closer. A minute later, the HVAC dashboard refreshed by itself. That should not have happened. He clicked through the access log, slow and careful. The screen showed authorized maintenance traffic, normal credentials, normal pathway, normal enough for someone who wanted normal to be the last thing anybody questioned. Caleb reached for the phone and called the IT operations desk. A young man answered on the 4th ring. Ops. This is Caleb in physical security. You've got activity from a maintenance terminal on 27. Looks off. A pause. Looks off how? Credential is valid. Pattern isn't. Another pause. Longer this time. Are you reporting a cybersecurity issue from the guard desk? Caleb looked at the monitor. Another blink. Another silent refresh. I'm reporting something that should be checked. The young man exhaled through his nose. Caleb could hear the smile in it. Okay, we'll take a look. The line clicked dead. Caleb placed the phone down gently. Noah stirred. Everything okay? Caleb kept his eyes on the screen. For now. At 9:26, the elevator opened and Helena Whitmore stepped into the lobby again, this time with the consultant beside her. She was speaking fast, annoyed by something upstairs, her voice cutting through the quiet. Caleb stood. Ms. Whitmore, he said. She stopped as if the interruption itself had touched her sleeve. Caleb held the legal pad at his side. There may be unauthorized activity moving through a maintenance access point. IT should isolate floor 27 before. Helena raised one hand. Just one. The gesture was small, but it shut the air around him. Mr. Brooks. Yes, Mr. Brooks. Her eyes went briefly to his badge. Tonight is not the night for building staff to create confusion. We have a $1 billion announcement in the morning. Caleb did not move. That's why I'm telling you now. The consultant looked him up and down. Is this from a security camera? No. Then where exactly are you getting this from? Caleb looked toward the dark monitor glass. His reflection stared back at him. Navy uniform, tired eyes, a father's shoulders. Nothing anyone in that lobby had been trained to fear or respect. From the pattern, he said. Helena gave a small laugh with no humor in it. The pattern. Noah was awake now. Caleb felt it without turning around. Helena stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough to make the insult sound private, while keeping it public. Mr. Brooks, your job is to watch doors. Let the people hired for technology handle technology. The consultant smiled. Caleb's jaw shifted once. Then he nodded. Yes, ma'am. Helena walked away. Noah sat very still in the security room doorway. Rocket clutched against his chest. Caleb returned to the monitors. At 9:41, Every screen in the lobby went black, one by one, like lights being swallowed. Every screen in the lobby went black. Not for long. 3 seconds. Then the company logo returned, as if nothing had happened. Most people never noticed. Caleb did. He watched the monitors come back online one by one. The timing was too clean. Systems rarely failed in perfect sequence. People assumed computers either worked or they didn't. Caleb had learned years ago that the most dangerous intrusions were the ones polite enough to knock before walking in. He wrote another time on the yellow legal pad. 9:41 p.m. Noah leaned closer. Was that bad? Caleb didn't answer immediately. It was unusual. The boy looked toward the dark hallway outside the security office. Are they going to fix it? I hope they already are. The next morning, Whitmore Financial Systems looked exactly the way investors expected a billion-dollar company to look. Glass polished, flags straight, coffee hot. Confidence everywhere. Employees filled the lobby wearing expensive shoes and carefully practiced smiles. Television crews were already setting up outside for the merger announcement scheduled before lunch. No one mentioned the blackout. Inside the Security Operations Center, however, the night shift was ending with paperwork. Caleb completed his incident report using simple language. 9:17, abnormal authentication behavior. 9:41, brief synchronized display interruption. Recommendation, investigate maintenance access credentials. He signed his name. Caleb Brooks, Night Security. Nothing more. His supervisor, Frank Donnelly, skimmed the report while sipping burnt coffee. Frank flipped the page over. IT already closed the ticket. They closed it in 6 minutes. They said everything checked out. Caleb nodded once. Then I hope they're right. Frank stared at him for a second. You know, Brooks? What? You worry too much. Caleb smiled politely. Maybe. He collected his lunchbox, woke Noah, and headed toward the elevators. Outside, Atlanta had already become hot. Traffic crawled. Construction echoed between buildings. Caleb drove an old silver pickup whose air conditioner only worked when it felt like cooperating. Noah sat beside him, eating cereal from a plastic container. Dad? If they don't listen. Caleb kept his eyes on the road. You still tell them, even if they laugh. Especially then. Noah turned Rocket over in his hands. My teacher says being right doesn't matter if nobody believes you. Caleb glanced over for only a heartbeat. Your teacher is talking about arguments. What about you? I'm talking about responsibility. The truck rolled through a green light. You don't control whether people listen. He paused. You only control whether you stayed silent. Noah looked out the window. He didn't completely understand. But he would remember every word. Their apartment sat above a family-owned grocery store on the west side of the city. 2 bedrooms, old carpet, windows that rattled whenever freight trains passed. It wasn't much. It was home. A framed photo rested on the bookshelf near the television. A woman with bright eyes sat between Caleb and a much younger Noah, all three laughing at something outside the camera frame. Noah stopped in front of it every afternoon. So, he said quietly, Mum would have told them too. Caleb followed his son's eyes. She would have told them twice. That earned the smallest smile. Caleb slept only 4 hours before returning for another night shift. The atmosphere inside Whitmore Financial had changed. The merger announcement was less than 18 hours away. Executives hurried through hallways carrying binders. Lawyers occupied conference rooms. The IT department had converted an empty office into a temporary command center. Large monitors covered one wall. Network traffic flowed across them in colorful lines that most people couldn't read. Caleb slowed as he walked past. Only for 2 seconds, long enough to notice one graph. Outbound encrypted traffic had doubled since yesterday. No maintenance window had been scheduled. Interesting. He kept walking. Emily Chen noticed him. 28 years old. Junior security operations engineer. Brilliant. Underrated. She had been staring at the same graph for 15 minutes. Most employees walked past without looking. The night guard had looked once and slowed down. Emily frowned. Later that evening, she found Caleb replacing batteries in an emergency flashlight cabinet. "You've been looking at our dashboards." Caleb closed the cabinet. "I've been walking past them. There's a difference." "Is there?" She crossed her arms. "You noticed something." "I notice lots of things." "Like what?" Caleb pointed toward the ceiling. "Camera 17 has been vibrating since Monday." Emily blinked. "The ventilation unit above it has a loose bearing." She looked surprised. He continued. "Someone changed the cleaning schedule." "How do you know that?" "The floor wax smells different." Emily couldn't tell if he was joking. He wasn't. "You also looked at the network graph." Caleb remained silent. Emily waited. Finally he spoke. "Your outbound traffic is breathing." "What?" "It rises every 90 seconds. She frowned. "That's normal synchronization." "It usually is. You don't sound convinced." "I'm not." Emily stared at him longer this time. Most people guessed. This man observed. That was different. "Did you study computers?" she asked. Caleb picked up the flashlight box. "A long time ago." "What kind of study?" "A different life." Before Emily could ask another question, Frank appeared around the corner. "There you are." He handed Caleb another radio. "CEO wants extra patrols tonight." Caleb clipped the radio onto his belt. "No problem." Frank lowered his voice. "And stay away from the IT department." Emily frowned. Frank continued. "They think you're distracting people." Caleb simply nodded. "Understood." As he walked away, Emily watched him disappear into the hallway. Something refused to make sense. Security guards didn't describe encrypted traffic as breathing. They didn't notice packet timing by glancing at one graph. And they definitely didn't observe networks the same way other people observed weather. Somewhere deep inside the building, unseen by everyone above ground, a hidden process quietly copied another block of encrypted data into an external server. No alarms sounded. No antivirus reacted. No one in the executive offices noticed. Except one man making his second patrol of the night. As Caleb paused outside the server corridor, he looked at the access panel. The green light blinked once, exactly every 90 seconds. His expression never changed. But inside his mind, pieces that had seemed unrelated the night before began fitting together. Someone wasn't trying to break into Whitmore Financial anymore. Someone was already living inside it. At 11:03 p.m., the first server disappeared. Not physically. On the operations dashboard, one green square simply turned gray. Emily noticed it immediately. Server 24 isn't responding. A technician looked up from his keyboard. Probably a monitoring glitch. He refreshed the dashboard. The gray square stayed gray. Then another server dropped, and another. Across the room, conversations stopped, one sentence at a time. Nobody panicked. Not yet. On the 28th floor, Helena Whitmore stood before a wall of windows overlooking downtown Atlanta. Tomorrow's merger announcement had already been rehearsed 3 times. Every word had been polished. Every camera angle approved. She had spent 6 months negotiating this acquisition. If everything went according to plan, Whitmore Financial Systems would become one of the largest payment processing companies in North America. Failure wasn't part of the schedule. Her assistant entered quietly. The IT department would like 10 minutes. Helena didn't turn around. For what? They're seeing some unusual system behavior. Can it wait until after tomorrow? They're not sure. Helena sighed. They're always not sure. She picked up her tablet. Tell them to stabilize whatever they're doing and stop interrupting executive meetings. The assistant hesitated. They sounded concerned. Helena finally looked up. They're engineers. They're always concerned. Downstairs, the concern was becoming measurable. Emily enlarged the network map. Instead of thousands of blue connection lines flowing between company servers, thin red threads had begun appearing. 1, then 5, then 19. Nobody recognized the pattern. Everyone assumed it was another software visualization error. Emily didn't. She compared it with last night's logs. Her stomach tightened. The same 90-second rhythm. Exactly the same. She picked up her phone. Frank? The security supervisor answered. Yeah? Where's Caleb Brooks? Frank sounded confused. The guard? Yes. He should be on East Patrol. Can you send him to the SOC? A pause. Why? I have a question. Caleb was checking emergency exits on the 19th floor when the radio crackled. Brooks. He pressed the button. Go ahead. Report to security operations. I'm on my way. He changed direction without asking why. Emily met him outside the SOC. She closed the door behind them. I need you to look at something. Caleb studied her face before he looked at the monitors. She wasn't frightened. She was thinking. Good. He stepped toward the display wall. Rows of traffic streamed across the screens. Most people saw color. Caleb saw behavior. His eyes moved once across the graphs, then to the authentication logs, then to the outbound traffic. Finally, he looked at the clock. 11:18. He didn't speak for almost 20 seconds. Emily waited. What do you see? Caleb answered quietly. They're staging. Emily frowned. Who? The attackers. Her heartbeat quickened. You think this is an actual intrusion? I think this stopped being one yesterday. The room suddenly felt much smaller. Emily lowered her voice. How many? Caleb's eyes never left the monitors. At least 4 access points. 4, maybe more. How can you tell? He pointed toward the authentication logs. See these successful maintenance logins? Emily nodded. They're too perfect. What does that mean? No maintenance crew logs in every 90 seconds. She stared at the screen. He continued. Neither does any human. Emily's fingers froze above her keyboard. Automation. Caleb nodded once. They've automated privilege escalation. Emily looked back at him. How do you know that? He didn't answer. Instead, who approved maintenance credentials after business hours? Emily typed rapidly. No one should have. She stopped. Unless. The color drained from her face. Someone inside the company had approved them. Frank entered the room. Everything okay? Emily answered first. No. Frank laughed nervously. What's going on? Emily pointed toward Caleb. He thinks we're under attack. Frank looked at Caleb. You told her that? I said you should investigate. Frank folded his arms. Brooks, this isn't your lane. Caleb remained calm. I know. Then let the professionals handle it. Emily interrupted. Frank. What? He might be right. Frank looked at her in disbelief. You've known him for 1 day. I've known computers for 9 years. Silence. Frank didn't know which answer bothered him more. At exactly 11:30 p.m., every employee's email stopped working. Phones began ringing. Conference room displays disconnected. Remote offices lost access to shared files. Across 3 states, customer support representatives found themselves locked out of their own systems. Inside the SOC, warning windows exploded across every monitor. Unauthorized encryption detected. Database replication interrupted. External traffic spike. Privilege escalation confirmed. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Emily's hands flew across the keyboard. "It's spreading." Another engineer shouted from the opposite side of the room. "It's inside payroll." "No. Legal just went offline." "What about backups?" "I can't reach them." The room dissolved into overlapping voices. Only one person wasn't speaking. Caleb. He stood perfectly still, watching the chaos the way a firefighter watches smoke instead of flames. Smoke always tells the truth first. The elevator doors burst open. Helena strode into the Security Operations Center, surrounded by executives. "What is happening?" Nobody answered immediately. Finally, the IT director spoke. "We're experiencing a network event." "A network event?" Helena's voice sharpened. "I asked for plain English." Emily swallowed. "We believe someone is stealing company data." The room became silent. Helena stared at her. "How much?" "We don't know." "When did this start?" Emily hesitated. She looked at Caleb, then back at Helena. "Possibly last night." Helena's eyes narrowed. "Last night?" "Yes. And nobody informed me?" Emily took a slow breath. "Someone did." Helena followed her gaze across the room. Her eyes landed on Caleb, the night guard, standing quietly near the back wall, still wearing the same faded navy uniform. For a long second, neither of them spoke. Then Helena walked toward him. "You?" Her voice was cold. "You said something yesterday." "Yes. And you're telling me you somehow knew this would happen." Caleb met her eyes without raising his voice. "I said the pattern should be checked." Helena took another step. "You expect me to believe a security guard understands a cyber attack better than my entire technology division?" "No." "Then what exactly are you saying?" Caleb answered, with the same calm tone he had used since the beginning. "I'm saying the people attacking your company are already ahead of every decision you're making." A heavy silence settled over the room. Then, somewhere deep inside the building, every light flickered. Once, twice. And the main trading database disappeared from the network. The countdown had begun. The countdown had begun. Inside the Security Operations Center, the wall of monitors no longer displayed a healthy network. It displayed damage. Entire sections of Whitmore Financial's infrastructure blinked amber, then red. One after another, internal services disappeared from the map, leaving empty spaces where millions of dollars worth of business had existed only seconds before. Phones rang without being answered. Printers suddenly woke up across the building, spitting out pages filled with meaningless symbols. Someone whispered, "They're encrypting everything." Emily's fingers moved desperately across her keyboard. "No." Her voice grew quieter. "They're choosing what to encrypt." Every head turned toward her. "What does that mean?" the IT director asked. Emily swallowed. "It means this isn't random ransomware." Her eyes scanned another log. "They know exactly where our critical systems are." The room fell silent. Someone inside had given the attackers a map. Helena Whitmore refused to let silence last. "I want answers." Nobody spoke. "I said now." The IT director cleared his throat. "We're still investigating." You're investigating while my company is bleeding." She looked around the room until her eyes stopped on Caleb, the only person standing completely still, the only person not typing, the only person not pretending. Helena walked directly toward him. "So," she said, loudly enough for everyone to hear, "perhaps our security guard has another prediction." A few nervous laughs escaped from the back of the room. Not because anyone found it funny. Because laughing was safer than speaking. Caleb didn't react. Helena folded her arms. "You seemed very confident yesterday. I was concerned. You were guessing. I was observing." Another executive smiled. "There's a difference." Caleb looked at him. "Usually." The smile disappeared. Helena took another step. "You know what I think." Caleb waited. "I think you've watched too many movies." Nobody interrupted. She continued. "You spend enough nights staring at security cameras, and eventually you convince yourself you're the smartest person in the building." The consultant standing beside her chuckled. Classic hero complex. Another manager joined in. "Maybe we should put him in charge of cybersecurity." More laughter. Emily looked from one face to another. No one noticed the embarrassment spreading across the room except her. Caleb wasn't embarrassed. Everyone else should have been. Helena pointed toward the security office, visible through the glass wall. "Mr. Brooks." Her tone became almost pleasant. "Would you remind everyone here what your job title is?" Caleb answered simply, "Night Security Officer." "And what does a night security officer do?" "I protect the building." She smiled. "Exactly." Then she turned toward the executives. "He protects doors." She looked back at Caleb. "My engineers protect information." The distinction hung in the air. Sharp, deliberate, calculated. "So, unless one of those doors starts hacking us," she gestured toward the hallway, "I'd appreciate it if you returned to your actual responsibilities." The room remained quiet. Caleb nodded once. Understood. He turned toward the exit. Emily suddenly spoke. "Wait." Everyone looked at her. She stepped forward. "He identified abnormal authentication almost 24 hours ago." Helena's expression hardened. And, Emily chose her words carefully. "I think we should hear him." The consultant laughed outright. "Hear him explain advanced persistent threats." Emily didn't answer. Helena did. "Miss Chen." "Yes?" "You're a junior engineer." "Yes." "You've been here 11 months." Emily nodded. "I hired people with doctorates." "I know." "I hired former NSA analysts." "I know." "I hired one of the best cybersecurity teams in the country." She paused. "And you're asking me to ignore all of them?" Her eyes shifted toward Caleb. "And listen to a man carrying a flashlight." The sentence landed harder than she intended. Or perhaps exactly as she intended. No one laughed this time. No one needed to. Caleb opened the door. Before stepping outside, he spoke without turning around. "The attackers aren't trying to destroy your systems." Helena rolled her eyes. "Of course they are." "No." He looked back. "They're slowing you down." Emily frowned. "What?" "They want everyone looking at broken servers." He pointed toward the largest monitor. "The real objective is still moving." The IT director blinked. "What real objective?" Caleb answered quietly. "Your merger." The room became still again. Helena crossed her arms. "Explain." Caleb shook his head. "You've already decided not to believe me. I asked a question, and I answered. You didn't. I said they're after the merger." "How?" "You'll find out." Helena stared at him. "You enjoy this?" "No." Then stop speaking in riddles. Caleb's eyes remained calm. I'm trying not to waste your time. My time? Every minute spent arguing with me. He looked at the clock. Is another minute they're inside. For the first time since entering the room, Helena had no immediate response. Only for a second, then pride returned. Frank, the security supervisor, straightened. Escort Mr. Brooks back to his post. Frank hesitated. Ma'am, now. Frank looked apologetically toward Caleb. I'm sorry. Caleb gave the smallest nod. No need. As they walked toward the door, Helena called after him. And Mr. Brooks. He stopped. If I need cybersecurity advice, she smiled thinly, I'll ask someone with a keyboard instead of a key ring. Several executives laughed, this time louder. The door closed behind Caleb. The hallway outside was quiet. Too quiet. Frank rubbed the back of his neck. You okay? Caleb adjusted his radio. I'm fine. They didn't mean. They meant every word. Frank sighed. I know. Caleb started walking toward the lobby. You should go back. What are you going to do? My job. Frank watched him disappear down the corridor. The strange thing wasn't that Caleb had been insulted. It was how completely unaffected he seemed. Almost as though none of it mattered. Back inside the SOC, Emily couldn't stop thinking about one sentence. They're slowing you down. She enlarged another network map. Then another. Her breathing slowed. The encrypted traffic wasn't moving toward destroyed servers. It was bypassing them. Traveling silently toward one isolated database, the merger archive, every confidential contract, every acquisition document, every negotiation record. Emily's eyes widened. Oh, she whispered. Oh, no. She spun toward Helena. They're not attacking the company. Every face turned toward her. They're stealing the merger. At that exact moment, every monitor in the room flashed white. A single message appeared across every screen. Thank you for keeping your security guard busy. The words stayed on every monitor for exactly 6 seconds. Then they vanished. No logo, no ransom demand, no signature, just silence. No one in the Security Operations Center moved. It was Emily who finally whispered, they were watching us. Nobody argued. They didn't need to. The attackers hadn't just breached Whitmore Financial's network. They had been watching every decision the company made, including the decision to ignore Caleb Brooks. Helena felt every eye in the room drift toward her. Not openly, quietly. The way people look at a mistake that has become impossible to hide. She straightened her jacket. Recover the merger files. No one answered. I gave an order. The IT director cleared his throat. We don't know where the data is. Then find it. Emily was already typing. Her heartbeat hammered inside her chest. Every server she checked returned the same result. Empty. Not deleted. Copied. Someone had taken the documents without disturbing the originals until the last possible moment. Professional. Patient. Planned months in advance. She looked toward the hallway where Caleb had disappeared. He knew. Maybe not everything, but he had seen the danger before anyone else. Downstairs, the lobby looked almost peaceful. Employees leaving late had no idea that the company above them was quietly losing control of its future. Caleb resumed his patrol exactly where he had left it. Front entrance, loading dock, emergency stairwell. Nothing in his pace suggested that the building behind him was in crisis. Frank caught up with him near the reception desk. You should have stayed. They told me to leave. I know. Frank hesitated. I think they made a mistake. Caleb checked the emergency exit. The mistake wasn't sending me out. Frank frowned. What do you mean? Caleb looked toward the ceiling cameras. The mistake happened yesterday. Upstairs, panic was replacing confidence. Law firms began calling. The European partners couldn't access encrypted contract folders. The board of directors demanded updates every 10 minutes. News organizations somehow learned that Whitmore Financial had delayed its morning announcement. Rumors spread faster than facts. By midnight, the company's stock had already begun slipping in overnight trading. Helena slammed a folder onto the conference table. How is this happening? No one had an answer. Finally, Emily spoke. They planned this around the merger. I know that. They also planned it around us. Helena stared at her. What does that mean? Emily looked at the frozen network map. They knew exactly how we'd react. Across the room, another engineer suddenly shouted, I found something. Everyone rushed toward his monitor. It's another message. A hidden text file had appeared inside one isolated server. Emily opened it. The room read together. You keep defending the front door. We came through the side entrance. No one breathed. Emily slowly closed her eyes. The side entrance. Maintenance credentials. Exactly what Caleb had warned about. Helena turned sharply. Where is Brooks? Frank answered over the radio. Ground floor. Bring him here. Frank hesitated. He already finished his patrol. I didn't ask what he finished. Her voice echoed through the operations center. I said bring him. At the same moment, Noah sat alone in the small security office. His homework was finished. Rocket rested beside the notebook. The building felt different now. Even a 9-year-old could sense it. People hurried past the glass door without smiling. Phones rang constantly. Someone ran down the hallway carrying 2 laptops. Noah quietly picked up Rocket. He remembered something his father always said. When people panic, watch the ones who stop paying attention. The boy looked through the glass. A man wearing a gray maintenance uniform pushed a supply cart toward the service elevator. Nothing unusual. Except, he didn't swipe his badge at the security door. The door was already unlocked. The man disappeared inside. Noah frowned. His father never left restricted doors open. Never. Caleb's radio crackled. Brooks. He pressed the button. Go ahead. CEO wants you upstairs. I'm on my way. He started walking toward the elevators. Halfway there, his phone vibrated. A text. From Noah. Dad. Maintenance guy went through server hallway. Didn't use a badge. Door already open. Caleb stopped walking. Every muscle in his body became perfectly still. He read the message again. Door already open. Not forced. Held open. Someone inside was helping. Caleb immediately called Noah. The boy answered on the first ring. Dad? Listen carefully. I'm listening. Stay inside the security office. Okay. Lock the door. I already did. Caleb closed his eyes for half a second. Good. Don't open it for anyone except me. What if they say they're security? They can wait. What if... Noah. The boy understood the tone immediately. Yes, sir. I'll be there soon. Caleb ended the call and turned away from the elevators. Not toward the executive floor. Toward the service corridor. Frank saw him changing direction. Brooks. Caleb kept walking. The CEO is waiting. Without stopping, Caleb answered, so is the attacker. Frank froze. For one heartbeat. Then he ran after him. Upstairs, Helena's patience finally broke. Where is he? Frank's voice came over the radio. He changed course. What? He says he's heading to the service level. Helena grabbed another radio herself. Mr. Brooks. Silence. That's an order. Caleb's calm voice answered a second later. With respect, ma'am. He kept walking through the dim hallway toward the server wing. Your company has spent the last 24 hours reacting. The corridor lights reflected off the polished concrete floor. Ahead of him, one fire door stood open by less than an inch. It should have been closed. Completely. Caleb slowed. His breathing stayed even. Into the radio, Helena demanded. Where are you going? Caleb stopped outside the door. He looked at the narrow gap, then quietly replied, I'm going to meet the employee who doesn't work here. He pushed the door open, and on the other side, someone was already waiting. Someone was already waiting. The figure stood at the far end of the narrow service corridor, half hidden by the humming ventilation units. Grey maintenance coveralls, tool cart beside him, baseball cap pulled low. He looked like every contractor Caleb had seen over the past 2 days, until he smiled. It wasn't the smile of a man surprised to be discovered. It was the smile of a man who had expected exactly this. So, the stranger said evenly, you finally came. Caleb stopped 10 feet away. Behind him, Frank rounded the corner, breathing hard. What the? Caleb raised one hand without taking his eyes off the man. Stay back. Frank froze. The stranger chuckled. I've heard about you. I doubt that. Oh, I think you underestimate your reputation. The man slowly removed his ID badge. It carried the name David Mercer. He held it between 2 fingers. It's fake. Then he dropped it onto the floor. Upstairs, Helena watched the security camera feed from the operations center. The hallway camera showed 2 men facing each other. Neither moved. Neither raised a voice. What are they doing? She asked. Emily stepped closer to the monitor. They're reading each other. Helena looked at her. What does that mean? Emily didn't answer. She didn't know. But somehow Caleb looked less like a security guard than he ever had before. Back in the corridor, the stranger tilted his head. I've spent 6 months inside this company. Caleb remained silent. Do you know what impressed me most? Nothing. No one notices maintenance workers. He spread his hands. We're invisible. Caleb finally spoke. Until something breaks. The man smiled wider. Exactly. He glanced toward the secured server room. By the time they realized what was happening, he tapped his watch. The important files were already gone. Frank instinctively reached toward his radio. Caleb spoke quietly. Don't. Frank looked confused. Why? Because he's buying time. The stranger laughed. Still sharp, Emily suddenly shouted from upstairs. I found another connection. Every engineer rushed toward her screen. It's still active. The encrypted traffic hadn't stopped. It had merely slowed. Someone was continuing to transfer data. Right now. Helena leaned over Emily's shoulder. Can you stop it? Emily's fingers flew across the keyboard. I'm trying. Every command returned the same message. Access denied. She stared. How? The IT director whispered, Someone has administrator privileges. Emily slowly looked toward the hallway monitor. Someone inside. The stranger slipped one hand into his pocket. Frank immediately stiffened. Caleb didn't. Instead, he asked one question. Who recruited you? The man laughed softly. I thought you'd ask how. No. Why not? Because the method doesn't matter anymore. The smile faded slightly. Caleb continued. Someone opened the door. The stranger's eyes narrowed. And you're trying to figure out who? For the first time, the stranger stopped speaking. Caleb had guessed correctly. At that exact moment, Noah remembered something. The security office. The unlocked server hallway. The maintenance worker. He looked at the bank of security monitors. Camera 12. Service elevator. Camera 14. Loading dock. Camera 18. Maintenance corridor. He blinked, then leaned closer. The image from camera 18 wasn't moving, not even slightly. No blinking indicator lights. No shifting shadows. No flickering fluorescent bulbs. Nothing. Noah frowned. He picked up Rocket and held it absent-mindedly. His father had once shown him how to tell when a security camera froze. "Look for the little things," Caleb had said. "Nothing in a real building stays perfectly still." Noah looked again. The picture was frozen. Someone had looped the camera feed. "Dad," he whispered to himself. Then he grabbed the office phone. Caleb's cell phone vibrated. One message. "Camera 18 is fake. It's frozen." From Noah. Caleb didn't even look surprised. He simply placed the phone back into his pocket. The stranger noticed. "What?" Caleb answered calmly. "You've been standing here because you wanted me looking at you." The man's smile disappeared. "You needed another 3 minutes." Silence. "You don't have them anymore." The stranger's eyes shifted, just once, toward the heavy fire door behind Caleb. That tiny movement was enough. Caleb turned, not toward the stranger, toward the service elevator. Its floor indicator changed. B2, B1, 1. Someone else was coming up. Not one attacker. 2. Frank finally understood. There are more of them. Caleb nodded once. They split the job. The conversation distracts. The partner finishes. The elevator chimed. The doors began sliding open. Inside stood another maintenance worker, pushing a large equipment case. He froze the instant he saw Caleb. For half a second, no one moved. Then the second man shoved the equipment case forward with all his strength. It rolled straight toward Frank. Frank stumbled backward to avoid it. The stranger sprinted for the stairwell. The second attacker turned the opposite direction. "They're running!" Frank shouted. "No." Caleb was already moving. "They're separating." He chose the second attacker without hesitation. Frank yelled. "What about the first one?" Caleb answered over his shoulder. "He doesn't have what we need. The second man does." The chase exploded through the service corridor. Metal doors slammed open. Emergency lights flashed. Boots pounded against concrete. Ahead, the attacker shoved through another fire door and disappeared into the restricted server level. Caleb followed. Just before the door closed behind them, Emily's voice burst through his radio. "We found it!" Caleb kept running. "What?" "The transfer destination." A pause. Then Emily's voice turned pale. "It's not outside the company." Caleb slowed. "What did you say?" The answer came in a whisper. "The stolen merger files are being copied into a hidden server inside this building." "The stolen merger files," Emily's voice trembled over the radio, "are being copied into a hidden server inside this building." Caleb stopped running. Only for a second. Then everything became clear. "They're not stealing the merger," he said quietly. Frank, still catching his breath behind him, frowned. "What?" "They're replacing it." Inside the Security Operations Center, nobody spoke. Emily stared at the screen. A hidden virtual machine had appeared beneath the company's backup cluster. It hadn't existed on any inventory list. No administrator remembered creating it. No monitoring software had reported it. It had lived quietly inside Whitmore Financial for months. "Waiting," Emily whispered. "It's been hiding in our own infrastructure." The IT director slowly sat down. "My God!" The attacker Caleb had been chasing disappeared through another security door. Instead of following immediately, Caleb looked around the hallway. Emergency lighting, fiber junction cabinet, access control panel, fire suppression sensors. Every piece fit together. Frank stared at him. What now? Caleb pointed toward the hallway ahead. If I keep chasing him, he wins. Frank looked confused. But he's getting away. Caleb shook his head. He's supposed to. At that moment, Helena arrived with 2 executives and 3 security officers. She looked from Frank to Caleb, to the open security door. Where is he? He left. You let him leave, Caleb answered calmly. He wasn't the objective. Helena's patience snapped. We just had an intruder inside my building. Yes, and you let him escape. He already finished his job. She stared at him. What are you talking about? Caleb walked toward the locked communications room. The person running through hallways isn't dangerous anymore. He touched the steel door lightly. The dangerous one. He looked toward the floor beneath them. Never moved. Emily's radio crackled. Caleb. It was the first time she had used his first name. The hidden server is still transferring data. How long? Maybe 20 minutes. You don't have 20. Silence. What do we do? Caleb looked at the keypad beside the communications room, then asked a question nobody expected. How many network switches feed your backup environment? Emily blinked. 3. No. She looked again. 4. No. Her fingers stopped. She zoomed farther out. 5. There was a 5th switch, hidden behind an old maintenance label. Her eyes widened. How did you know? Caleb didn't answer. Instead, is switch 5 connected to the virtual machine? Emily typed furiously. 10 seconds passed. Then, yes. The room erupted. Disconnected, someone shouted. Emily reached for the command console. Every option was locked. She looked helplessly toward the hallway camera. I can't. Caleb extended one hand. Give me temporary access. The radio fell silent. Helena stepped in front of him. No. Emily looked at her. What? He doesn't work in information security. He doesn't need to. I said no. Helena folded her arms. I am not handing my company's core systems over to a security guard. Caleb met her eyes. I don't need control. What do you need? A keyboard. Nobody moved. The room waited. Finally, Emily unplugged her laptop. She ran from the operations center. Down one flight. Across the service hallway, she stopped in front of Caleb. Without saying a word, she handed him the computer. Helena took one step forward. Miss Chen! Emily never looked away from Caleb. If I'm wrong, she said quietly, you can fire me tomorrow. Caleb opened the laptop. He didn't ask for passwords. Emily entered them. He didn't ask where the network diagrams were. He never opened them. Instead, his fingers began moving. Not fast. Efficient. Every command appeared without hesitation. No searching. No guessing. No wasted motion. Emily watched in stunned silence. He wasn't exploring the system. He already understood it. Frank looked over Caleb's shoulder. I can't even read what he's doing, Emily barely whispered. Neither can I. Upstairs, engineers gathered around the mirrored display. Every command Caleb entered appeared instantly on the wall. One engineer frowned. Why isn't he using the security software? Another answered, because he isn't looking for malware. What is he looking for? Nobody knew. Except Caleb. He wasn't hunting the attackers. He was hunting their assumptions. Command after command flashed across the screen. Network routes changed. Authentication paths disappeared. Encrypted tunnels folded into one another. One by one, the red connection lines vanished. Emily suddenly gasped. He isn't blocking them. The IT director looked up. What? He's making them chase themselves. The room stared. Caleb had quietly redirected every malicious process back into the hidden virtual machine that had been controlling them. Instead of attacking Whitmore Financial, the malware had begun encrypting its own command server. The attackers were destroying themselves. No antivirus, no dramatic shutdown, no digital battle, just mathematics. Pure, elegant mathematics. Hundreds of miles away, inside an apartment overlooking the harbor in Baltimore, a young hacker stared at 6 monitors. What? Another looked over. What happened? Our control server just disappeared. Impossible. It isn't responding. The lead operator rushed across the room. No. His face lost color. He inverted the trust chain. Silence. Only one person in the room could have done that. But according to every intelligence report they had purchased, that man had retired years ago, back in Atlanta. Emily's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. This is Emily. The voice on the other end was calm. This is Special Agent Daniel Foster, with the Federal Cyber Defense Bureau. Emily froze. We've been monitoring an international intrusion targeting your company. Her eyes widened. How? We intercepted unusual routing changes 30 seconds ago. A pause. Then the agent asked the question that froze everyone within earshot. Can you put Mr. Caleb Brooks on the phone? Emily slowly looked toward Caleb. He was still typing, still wearing the same faded Navy security uniform. Still saying nothing. She swallowed. You know him. The agent didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the quiet certainty of someone recognizing an old legend. We've been trying to find him for almost 5 years. We've been trying to find him for almost 5 years. The words echoed through the Security Operations Center. Emily didn't answer. She simply looked at Caleb. He was still standing in the service hallway, one hand resting lightly on the laptop, eyes following lines of code that continued to stream across the screen. Around him, radios crackled, executives argued, and engineers shouted updates across the room. None of it seemed to touch him. Emily pressed the speaker button. Mr. Brooks is here. The voice on the other end became noticeably calmer. Good. Helena stepped closer. Who is this? Special Agent Daniel Foster, Federal Cyber Defense Bureau. Her expression changed. The Bureau? Yes, ma'am. I need a status report. I'm afraid I can't provide one until I speak with Mr. Brooks. Helena frowned. He works for me. There was a brief silence. Then Foster replied politely. No, ma'am. Another pause. He works with you. Nobody in the room spoke. Helena blinked. I don't understand. You will. The line remained open. Emily slowly carried the phone toward Caleb. He looked up. Agent Foster. The man on the other end gave a quiet laugh. I hoped that was still your voice. Caleb didn't smile. It's been a while. 5 years. Closer to 6. You disappeared. I retired. You vanished. I became a father. Silence settled across everyone listening. Foster finally asked, Is Noah okay? Caleb glanced toward the security office cameras. He's safe. Good. Another pause. We've been monitoring this group for almost 11 months. I figured. We lost them 3 times. I know. You knew. They wanted you to. Emily looked at the engineers. No one even pretended to understand anymore. Foster continued. The routing changes you just deployed. He exhaled quietly. I haven't seen that containment protocol since Ravenshield. The room became completely still. One of the older engineers looked up sharply. Ravenshield? Another engineer whispered. That's classified. The IT director frowned. I've heard that name. Emily hadn't. She quietly searched an internal government archive available through the company's compliance database. Every result returned the same message. Restricted. Helena folded her arms. Agent Foster. Yes? I need someone to explain exactly who Mr. Brooks is. The answer came immediately. I'm not authorized to discuss his previous assignments. Helena's patience wore thin. My company is under attack. I understand. And this man somehow knows things my entire cybersecurity division doesn't. Yes. Why? Another brief silence. Finally, Foster answered. Because many of the defensive principles your cybersecurity division still studies, he paused, were written by him. No one breathed. Emily slowly turned toward Caleb. He never looked away from the laptop. The room suddenly felt much smaller. The IT director stepped forward. You're saying... He couldn't finish. Foster did it for him. Mr. Brooks led one of the federal teams responsible for designing adaptive intrusion containment protocols after the Cascade attacks. An older consultant's face drained of color. No. He stared at Caleb. It can't be. Emily looked at him. You know what he's talking about. The consultant swallowed. 10 years ago, his voice became quieter. Every major financial institution rebuilt its security architecture. Emily nodded. I studied that. The framework, he looked toward Caleb, was never credited publicly. He took one slow breath. There were rumors. What rumors? That the lead architect walked away before the program was declassified. His eyes never left Caleb. I thought he was a myth. Helena looked from one face to another. No one was laughing now. No one remembered the flashlight. No one remembered the keyring. They only remembered every warning they had ignored. She looked at Caleb. You could have told me. He finally lifted his eyes from the screen. You never asked. The sentence wasn't cruel. It wasn't triumphant. It was simply true. At that moment, another call entered the operations center. The chairman of Whitmore Financial's board of directors. Helena answered immediately. This is Helena. The chairman didn't waste time. The bureau just contacted us. She closed her eyes briefly. I know. They've confirmed the identity of your security officer. I know. They also recommended one thing. What? His answer was short. Get out of his way. Across the room, Emily watched Caleb's hands stop moving for the first time in nearly 20 minutes. The network map had changed. The red attack lines were disappearing, not all at once, one after another, methodically. Like lights going out in a city at dawn. One engineer whispered, They're losing control. Another looked at the incoming traffic. They're disconnecting. No! Emily shook her head. They're being disconnected. Hundreds of miles away. Inside the attacker's command center, alarms erupted across every monitor. The lead operator slammed both hands onto the desk. Cut the tunnels! They won't close! Kill the virtual machines. They're already locked. Every command failed. Every escape route vanished. One of the younger hackers stared at the screen. His voice barely escaped. Who is doing this? The room fell silent. The oldest member slowly removed his headset. He looked at the containment pattern spreading across every system, then quietly said the name none of them had expected to say again. Caleb Brooks. Another hacker frowned. You know him? The older man nodded once. I've never met him. Then how? I studied him. Silence. He taught an entire generation how to defend networks, the younger hacker whispered. And now, we're attacking one. The older man looked at the collapsing control server. No. His shoulders slowly dropped. We attacked the only building in America where he happened to be standing. Back in Atlanta, the final malicious connection disappeared from the network map. The room erupted into cheers. Engineers hugged each other. Phones rang with good news for the first time all night. Emily smiled in relief. Frank leaned against the wall, exhausted. Helena remained completely still, because she understood something everyone else had not. The attack was ending, but the consequences of how she had treated Caleb Brooks were only beginning. The last red line disappeared. For the first time in nearly 7 hours, the network map showed nothing but blue. Healthy. Stable. Alive. No one in the Security Operations Center spoke. They simply stared at the wall of monitors, waiting for another alarm. None came. Emily refreshed the dashboard. Again. And again. Every critical system responded. Customer databases, trading platforms, payment processing, legal archives, the merger documents. Everything was back. Not restored from backups, never lost in the first place. Caleb had trapped the attackers before they could replace the original files. The realization spread through the room, one person at a time. He protected everything. Someone whispered. Hundreds of miles away, federal agents forced open the door to a warehouse overlooking Baltimore Harbor. Federal agents, don't move. The hackers barely looked up. There was nowhere left to run. Every server in the room had locked itself. Every cryptocurrency wallet had frozen. Every communication log remained intact. One agent looked across the monitors. They preserved the evidence. Another nodded. Whoever contained this wanted arrests, not revenge. The lead operator slowly lowered his hands. He already knew. That was exactly how Caleb Brooks had always worked. Back at Whitmore Financial Systems, the board of directors arrived before sunrise. Some had flown overnight. Others appeared by secure video conference. No one wanted to discuss quarterly earnings anymore. There was only one subject on the agenda. How had a company with one of the country's highest-rated cybersecurity teams been saved by a night security officer? The chairman entered the operations center. Gray hair, dark suit, calm eyes. He walked past Helena without speaking, then stopped in front of Caleb. For a long moment, the two men simply looked at each other. Finally, the chairman extended his hand. Mr. Brooks. Caleb shook it once. Sir, I believe my company owes you more than a thank you. Caleb answered quietly. Your company doesn't owe me anything. The chairman looked around the room. I disagree. Helena stood several feet away. She had rehearsed hundreds of presentations during her career, negotiated acquisitions worth billions, answered hostile investors, faced television cameras without blinking. None of those experiences prepared her for the silence she now faced. Every employee in the room was watching, not with anger, with expectation. She walked toward Caleb. The sound of her heels echoed across the floor. When she finally stopped in front of him, the room became completely still. I owe you an apology. Caleb said nothing. Helena took a slow breath. Yesterday, she looked briefly toward Emily, and again tonight. Her voice nearly failed. I judged your value by your job title. No one moved. I interrupted you. I dismissed your warnings. I embarrassed you in front of your colleagues. She swallowed. And because of my arrogance, she looked around the operations center. I almost destroyed everything this company spent 30 years building. Silence. Then Helena did something no one in Whitmore Financial had ever seen. She stepped back and lowered her head. Not dramatically, not theatrically, simply enough to acknowledge the truth. "I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks." No cameras flashed. No applause followed. Only silence. Caleb waited until she looked back up. Then he answered with the same calm voice he had used from the beginning. "I accept your apology." Another pause. "But don't apologize because I was right." Helena frowned. "Apologize because next time..." He looked across the room at the receptionists, custodians, security officers, maintenance workers, and junior analysts who had quietly gathered outside the glass walls. It might be someone else wearing a different uniform. The words settled over the room far more heavily than any accusation could have, because everyone understood them. The chairman slowly turned toward the board members. "I've heard enough." He looked directly at Helena. Leadership is measured long before a crisis. No one interrupted him. When someone closest to the problem feels unheard, the failure belongs to leadership. He paused. "Not to the employee." Helena closed her eyes. She already knew what was coming. "The board has unanimously voted to remove you as Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately." The words landed without anger, without celebration, only consequence. Her executive access badge deactivated with a soft electronic tone. The sound seemed louder than every alarm that had rung that night. Her assistant quietly stepped beside her. "I'm sorry." Helena managed a faint nod. "So am I." She unclipped the silver badge from her jacket, placed it on the conference table, then walked toward the exit alone. As the elevator doors closed, she glanced once through the glass wall. Caleb was already helping Emily review the final system logs. He wasn't watching her leave. He had never been interested in watching people fall. Only in helping them stand before it was too late. The chairman faced the room again. "Mr. Brooks." Caleb looked up. "We would like to offer you the position of Chief Information Security Officer." A quiet murmur spread through the employees. The salary would have been enormous, the authority even greater. Everyone waited. Caleb looked at the offer letter resting on the table, then at the clock. 6:47 a.m., almost time for Noah to leave for school. He smiled very slightly. The first real smile anyone in the building had seen. "I'm honored." The chairman smiled. "I hope that's a yes." Caleb gently closed the folder. "I'm afraid it isn't." The entire room stared. "I already have the most important job in my life." Emily looked puzzled. "What job is that?" Caleb slipped the laptop back into her hands. "Being Noah's dad." No one laughed. Several people quietly looked down, because at that moment, every title in the room suddenly felt much smaller. The sun was just beginning to rise over Atlanta. Golden light spilled across the glass walls of Whitmore Financial Systems, washing away the harsh glow of emergency lights that had burned through the night. For the first time in hours, the building was quiet. Engineers drifted out of the operations center, carrying cold coffee and exhausted smiles. Maintenance crews replaced ceiling panels that had been opened during the investigation. Security officers returned to their posts. The crisis was over. Life, slowly, was finding its rhythm again. Caleb walked into the security office. Noah was asleep in the chair, his head resting against his backpack. Rocket was still tucked safely in one small hand. Caleb stood there for a long moment. There were board members waiting upstairs, federal agents asking questions, executives preparing statements for investors. None of them could wait longer than this moment. He knelt beside his son. "Hey, buddy." Noah opened one eye. "Did you catch them?" Caleb smiled. they caught themselves. Noah rubbed his eyes. So, everything's okay. Caleb looked at the sleeping city outside the window. It will be. Noah nodded once. That was enough for him. 3 days later, Whitmore Financial held an all-hands meeting in the main auditorium. More than 2,000 employees attended in person. Thousands more joined through live stream. The company had recovered. The merger was back on schedule. Federal investigators announced multiple arrests connected to the international cybercrime group. Industry analysts called the response one of the most successful cyber containment operations in recent years. Most headlines praised the company. Those who knew the truth praised one man. Emily stood behind the podium. She had barely slept all week. She looked different now, not because of exhaustion, because confidence had quietly replaced uncertainty. The board has asked me to share one announcement. She smiled toward the audience. As of today, Whitmore Financial is creating a new security architecture division. Applause filled the auditorium. Emily continued. I've also accepted the responsibility of leading that division. Another round of applause followed. She waited for it to settle. Before I do, I owe someone a thank you. Her eyes searched the front row. Caleb sat beside Noah, wearing the same Navy security uniform. He hadn't bought a new suit. He hadn't asked for one. Emily laughed softly. I spent 11 months trying to prove I belonged in this company. She looked at Caleb. You reminded me that titles don't make people worth listening to. They only tell us where they work. They never tell us what they know. The audience rose to its feet, not because someone asked them to, because it felt right. The applause lasted nearly a full minute. Caleb simply nodded once. He never stood. He never waved. Recognition had never been the reason he spoke. After the meeting, the chairman found Caleb outside the building. I know you've already declined our offer. Caleb smiled politely. I did. The chairman handed him a smaller envelope. This isn't another executive position. Caleb opened it. Inside was a simple consulting agreement. 1 day a week. Flexible hours. No executive office. No corporate title. Only one request. Help us build a culture where every voice is heard. Caleb looked up. This, if I can do. They shook hands. Neither man mentioned money. Neither needed to. That afternoon, Caleb picked Noah up from school. No television cameras waited outside. No reporters followed them. Just an ordinary father, walking beside his son. They stopped at their favorite neighborhood park. Noah placed Rocket on the top of a wooden bench. Ready? Caleb nodded. The little red car rolled down the smooth wood, picked up speed, then jumped the small gap onto another bench, exactly the way Noah had practiced dozens of times before. It landed perfectly. Yes! Noah shouted, throwing both arms into the air. Caleb laughed. A real laugh this time. The kind that belonged to a man who finally allowed himself to believe the hardest part was behind him. Noah picked up Rocket and looked at his father. Dad? Yeah? When I grow up, I don't want people to think I'm important because of my job. Caleb looked at him carefully. What do you want? Noah smiled. I want them to trust me before they know what I do. Caleb rested a hand on his son's shoulder. If you spend your life treating people with respect, that'll happen more often than you think. The two of them started walking home. The evening breeze carried the sound of children laughing across the park. Rocket disappeared into Noah's jacket pocket. Safe. Exactly where it had been at the beginning of the story. Some people wear expensive suits. Some carry executive titles. Some hold keys to the tallest offices in the city. But character has never needed a dress code. The next person everyone overlooks. may be the one holding everything together. And sometimes, the strongest people in the room are the ones nobody thinks to listen to until the room falls silent. If this story stayed with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes respect should never depend on a job title. We'll see you in the next story.